Imagine your favorite sports team.
Right.
Like, they just signed the greatest player in the world.
Oh, yeah, the absolute MVP of the league.
Right. The fans are going completely wild. The press is losing their minds over the championship potential. The jerseys are completely sold out on day one.
Naturally.
But then the very next morning, the government walks up and permanently padlocks the stadium doors.
Wow.
You have this ultimate generational talent, but you are literally legally banned from playing the game.
Which is an incredibly surreal situation to try and wrap your head around.
It's totally surreal.
Yeah, but that is exactly the level of chaos and, frankly, contradiction that's unfolding in the AI industry right now.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a stack of technology news for you today, specifically the Tech Reader AI Digest for Saturday, June 20, 2026.
And it has been a week.
Oh, a paradigm-shifting week. Because looking at this material, we're seeing this massive high-speed collision between three very distinct things.
Right, the talent, the money, and the politics.
Exactly. You've got generational scientific talent, the absolutely brutal economic reality of what it costs to actually run these AI servers.
Which is astronomical right now.
Astronomical. And then a geopolitical chess match between the United States and China that is literally playing out right inside your code base.
Yeah, we are firmly leaving the era of AI hype. I mean, for the last few years, everything was about potential, right? Theoretical capabilities, benchmark scores, demo videos.
The honeymoon phase.
Exactly, the honeymoon. But what the sources show us this week is that we have entered the era of AI consequences.
Right.
National security interests and corporate profit margins are now going head-to-head. And the collateral damage from that collision is fundamentally reshaping how every single developer, and really every enterprise, uses these tools.
So let's start with the human element, because the biggest personnel news of the week perfectly captures this exact friction between scientific progress and government regulation.
John Jumper News.
Yeah, John Jumper is leaving Google DeepMind. I mean, he's been there for 9 years, and he just announced on X that he's joining Anthropic.
A massive, massive move.
Yeah, his specific title won't even be announced until a science event on June 30th, but this is a seismic shift for the industry. I mean, for those listening, we are talking about the computational chemist who co-created AlphaFold.
Right, and shared the 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
Exactly.
The gravity of Jumper jumping ship, pun entirely intended, is massive. Because AlphaFold isn't just another AI product, It is widely regarded as the most consequential application of artificial intelligence to hard science and history.
Wow.
Yeah, to understand why he's a Nobel laureate, you really have to look at the problem he solved. For decades, biology struggled with what they call the protein folding problem.
Right, like trying to figure out the 3D shape of a protein based on just its amino acid sequence?
Exactly. Because the shape dictates how a protein actually functions.
Yeah.
Which is, well, it's the key to discovering new drugs, understanding diseases, basically all of modern biology.
And before AlphaFold, mapping just one of those structures could take a scientist, years of painstaking lab work.
Oh, years of work. And millions of dollars using techniques like X-ray crystallography. It was incredibly slow.
Right.
But under Jumper's leadership, AlphaFold produced highly accurate structure predictions for something like 200 million proteins.
Which is wild.
Yeah, that is essentially every protein known to science. Over 2 million researchers across 190 countries have used that database.
It's just staggering scale.
It really is. It was the definitive proof that artificial intelligence wasn't just a clever parlor trick to, auto-complete your emails or generate marketing copy.
Right. It proved AI could actually unlock fundamental mysteries in biology.
Yes. And now, the architect of that proof has chosen Anthropic, which is a company that has spent all of 2026 aggressively building out their AI for science infrastructure.
They've even been building physical wet labs, right?
Exactly. Real physical labs.
And the crazy thing is, Google didn't just lose Jumper. In the exact same 7-day window, they lost Noam Shazir to OpenAI.
The co-lead of Gemini.
Yeah, and a co-author of the original Transformer paper. That is two defining figures of the modern AI era walking out the door in 1 week.
It's unprecedented.
But okay, let's unpack this Anthropic situation, because I really want to challenge the logic here based on Aaron Rose's commentary in the Tech Reader Digest.
Okay, let's hear it.
So Anthropic just landed a 2024 Nobel laureate. It's an incredible talent coup. But Anthropic's flagship models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5, have literally been grounded offline for 8 days by a U.S. Commerce Department export control order.
Right, over a glaring security vulnerability.
Exactly. So my question is, isn't stockpiling generational scientific talent while your core product is legally blocked from operating the ultimate Silicon Valley hubris? Like buying a top-tier racing engine for a car that isn't even allowed on the track.
Well, Aaron Rose's analysis points out that exact paradox. You really have to look at the dual realities these companies are operating in right now.
What do you mean by dual realities?
Well, in the realm of venture capital and industry prestige, hiring John Jumper is the ultimate flex.
Sure.
Putting a Nobel Prize on your org chart is a credential that, frankly, no benchmark score can buy. It signals to the market and to other top-tier engineers that your lab is the absolute frontier of discovery.
I get that. But prestige doesn't satisfy a Commerce Department export control order.
Precisely. And that is the harsh reality Anthropic is facing on the other side of things. The refund deadline for Fable 5 is tonight.
Meaning they're just hemorrhaging revenue.
Hemorrhaging. They have to implement a rigorous privacy policy ID verification system by July 8th, and that's just to get a U.S.-only restoration of their models.
Oh, wow, just the U.S.?
Yeah, and the digest makes a very sharp observation here. You can hire all the Nobel winners you want, but if a company cannot sort out its compliance and its models remain legally offline, those brilliant scientists are simply, as Rose puts it, expensive benchwarmers.
Expensive benchwarmers. That phrase paints such a vivid picture. And, you know, the U.S. government grounding these models isn't the only thing breaking the ecosystem right now.
Far from it.
The sheer economic cost of running these models is breaking things just as fast. Because if U.S. models are both restricted and wildly expensive to run, what happens to the massive enterprise software we all rely on?
The economics are brutal.
Right. Microsoft just announced on June 16th that they are shifting Copilot Cowork, that's their enterprise AI agent from Microsoft 365, from a flat rate per user license to consumption-based pricing.
And that's effective immediately.
Effective immediately. So what does this all mean?
Well, what's fascinating here is the economics driving Microsoft's decision. They're completely transparent when you look at actual user behavior.
Okay, how so?
Charles Lamanna, the executive vice president for Copilot, explained to Axios that users are being highly productive. They're automating hundreds of tasks a week.
Which is the goal, right?
Right, but the underlying compute costs are going through the roof because of the shift to agentic AI.
Ah, right. The Digest cites a Microsoft research study from April showing that agentic coding tasks consume roughly 1,000 times more tokens than standard code chat interactions.
1,000 times more.
And the exact same task can vary by as much as 30 times in total token usage depending on the run. So for the listener, flat rate pricing was a delusion. It's like opening an all-you-can-eat buffet, expecting people to eat a few plates, but suddenly a football team of AI agents walks in and eats 1,000 times the normal amount.
That's a perfect analogy. Because standard AI is like asking a chef for a recipe and they just hand you a piece of paper. But an AI agent is entirely different.
Right. How would you describe an agent?
An AI agent is like hiring a chef who writes the recipe, attempts to cook the meal, tastes it, realizes it needs more salt, adjusts the recipe, and then cooks it again before ever bringing it to your table.
It's doing all the work behind the scenes.
Exactly. Agentic AI doesn't just output a single answer. It's given a goal, and it autonomously spins up subtasks. It writes code, it tests that code in a sandbox, it spots its own errors, it reads the error logs, and it rewrites the code.
Wow.
And every single step in that iterative loop burns tokens.
And every token burned requires electricity, cooling, and massive GPU power in a data center somewhere.
Yep. It's wildly expensive.
Yeah.
So to salvage those rapidly shrinking profit margins, Microsoft is actively evaluating DeepSeek V4.
Which is a Chinese AI model.
Yes. They're looking at it as a lower-cost alternative to the Anthropic and OpenAI models that currently power Copilot Cowork.
Because DeepSeek is able to offer inference costs at roughly 1/6 the price of a comparable frontier models.
Exactly 1/6. And they do that because it utilizes a mixture of experts architecture.
Okay, mixture of experts. Let's break that down for the listener. Because paying 1/6 the price for the exact same capability sounds like literal magic. How does that architecture actually work?
So think of a traditional dense AI model as a massive general-purpose brain. Every time you ask it a question, whether it's a really complex coding problem or just, recipe for pancakes, the entire brain activates.
It uses 100% of its power every time.
Right. Every single parameter fires, which requires a massive amount of computing power and electricity. A mixture of experts model, or MOE, changes that.
Oh, so?
It's essentially an ensemble of smaller, highly specialized neural networks. Those are the extras. When you submit a prompt, a routing mechanism analyzes it and only wakes up the specific experts needed for that exact task.
Oh, I see. So if I ask a coding question, it only fires up the coding sector while I don't know, the poetry and history sectors just stay asleep.
Exactly. You get the knowledge capacity of a massive model, but you're only paying the electricity and compute costs of a fraction of it at any given moment.
That's incredibly smart.
It is. That is how DeepSeek drives the price down so dramatically. And Microsoft says that if they integrate DeepSeek, it would be optional for customers. And it would be fully hosted on their own Azure servers. So heavily covered by Azure's enterprise security and data residency controls.
But here is where the friction hits a boiling point. I mean, Microsoft is the company that paid $7.5 billion for GitHub. They basically built the modern Copilot era on the backs of OpenAI and Anthropic.
Oh, absolutely.
And now they are looking at a Chinese lab for a mainstream U.S. enterprise product. Azure hosting might handle the data routing, keeping the packets of information on Microsoft's hardware, but it does not erase the origin of the model.
No, it doesn't. And the source material highlights the massive political complication here. DeepSeek is a Chinese company. Under China's national intelligence laws, Chinese companies are legally obligated to cooperate with government intelligence requests.
Right, which is a huge red flag for the enterprise sector.
Huge. Microsoft is attempting to mitigate this by independently fine-tuning the model and adding safeguards on top of it, but the foundational tension remains.
I mean, you have an American presidential administration that literally just issued an export control order shutting down a U.S. company, Anthropic, over security vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And that same administration is watching the world's largest enterprise software vendor prepare to host a Chinese origin AI in its cloud.
It's a fundamental clash of priorities. As the Digest notes, Microsoft is desperately prioritizing cheap compute to save its enterprise margins, while the U.S. government is fiercely guarding national security and geopolitical dominance.
It's a showdown.
It is. And Aaron Rose argues in his analysis that in a showdown of that magnitude, national security will inevitably trump cheap compute.
So if a tech giant like Microsoft is being squeezed so hard by compute costs that they are looking to Beijing for a solution, what happens to everyday enterprise developers?
Caught in the middle.
Completely.
Yeah.
And the U.S. government's regulations have effectively created a vacuum. They grounded Fable 5, creating this massive void at the very top of the market. And a company named Z.AI just slid right into it.
Yeah, ZAI is a fascinating case study in how fast this landscape moves.
Give us the background on them.
So they are a Beijing-based company spun out of Tsinghua University in 2019. They went public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange early this year, and their market cap surged over 700% above their IPO price.
700%.
Yeah. Investors are swarming into Chinese AI assets because they see the opportunity. Because just 4 days after the U.S. forced Anthropic's Fable 5 to shut down, ZAI released a brand new model called GLM 5.2.
The timing is just unbelievable. And the specifications on GLM 5.2 are staggering. It features 753 billion total parameters.
Again, using that highly efficient mixture of experts architecture.
Right. But the absolute headline feature here is its context window. It has an incredible 1 million token context window.
Which is huge. A context window is essentially the AI's short-term working memory. It's how much information the model can actively keep in its head while it formulates an answer. Older models had very small context windows. If you fed them a whole book, by the time they analyzed the final chapter, they had literally forgotten the first chapter.
Wait, so what does a 1 million token memory actually mean for a developer sitting at their desk? Like, why is that such a game changer?
It means you can feed the model an entire mid-sized software code base all at once.
Yeah, all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of lines of code. Previously, developers had to rely on these really complex workarounds. They had to chunk their code into smaller pieces or use secondary programs to summarize the code before feeding it to the AI.
Which sounds like a nightmare.
It was. And those workarounds inevitably degrade the quality of the output, creating bugs and hallucinations. Z.AI eliminated that bottleneck with a new architectural optimization they call index share.
Okay, index share. That sounds incredibly dense. How does that actually optimize memory?
So imagine a massive construction site where hundreds of workers need to look at the blueprint. Older models essentially printed a separate massive copy of the blueprint for every single worker, which obviously takes up an enormous amount of space and resources.
Right, highly inefficient.
Exactly. Index share acts like a single, perfectly updated master blueprint placed right in the center of the site. and all the workers can read it simultaneously without copying it.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, it shares a single attention index across multiple layers of the model, which drastically reduces the memory overhead needed to process those 1 million tokens.
And according to ZAI, GLM 5.2 outperforms GPT 5.5 on major benchmarks like Humanities Last Exam and Frontier SWE.
Right.
Now, the digest notes that CNBC hasn't independently verified those claims yet, but it currently sits as the top-ranked model on BenchLM's Chinese AI leaderboard.
And it is priced at approximately 1/6 of GPT 5.5's rates.
Right. And perhaps most importantly, they released it under an MIT open source license.
Which creates a massive allure for the global developer community. I mean, you have a tool with a 1 million token context window, benchmark parity with Western models, costing a fraction of the price, and it's open source.
Developers are just flocking to it.
Yeah, they are actively migrating from the stranded Fable 5 user base directly over to GLM 5.2 and another model called Kimike 2.7.
But wait, here's where it gets really interesting. If it's released under an MIT open source license, isn't it completely safe? Like anyone can download the code, inspect it, and run it. How does a cheap open source coding tool become a geopolitical issue?
Well, this is where Aaron Rowe's warning about the massive data sovereignty trap comes into play.
The data sovereignty trap. Explain that.
Yes, the MIT license allows you to inspect and modify the model's code.
Yeah.
But the reality of running a 753 billion parameter model with a 1 million token context window is that almost no everyday enterprise developer has the massive supercomputers required to run that locally on their own hardware.
Okay. So they aren't running it on their laptops. They are pinging Z.AI's servers.
Exactly. They are utilizing ZLAI's hosted APIs. When American enterprise developers rush to use GLM 5.2 because it is cheap and available, they are actively piping their company's proprietary code, private architectures, and internal logic through infrastructure owned by a company legally beholden to Chinese national security laws.
Wow.
Yeah. The U.S. Commerce Department created a massive void by pulling American models offline for security reasons. And ironically, it drove developers straight into foreign infrastructure.
That is the ultimate irony of this whole situation. And this perfectly validates the massive push we are seeing for sovereign AI, right?
Oh, definitely.
Companies like Cohere and Aleph Alpha, who the digest notes are currently pending a $20 billion merger, they have been making this exact argument for months.
Right. They've been warning enterprises and governments that relying entirely on foreign AI infrastructure or even infrastructure subject to volatile U.S. export controls is a massive vulnerability.
So the pending Cohere and Aleph Alpha merger is basically a $20 billion bet that enterprises will pay a premium for AI infrastructure that exists securely outside of U.S. export jurisdiction and Chinese intelligence laws.
Exactly.
Right.
Because at any moment, as we just saw with Fable 5, a government can pull the plug and remove the world's most capable model from the market literally overnight.
Right. And when the U.S. government yanks the steering wheel like that and enterprise users start fleeing to Chinese models to save money, the rest of the industry doesn't just sit still.
No, they scramble.
Looking at the quick hits section from the digest, we see massive, aggressive maneuvering as every other company tries to capture the chaos.
OpenAI is a perfect example of this predatory maneuvering. We already mentioned they scooped up Noah and Shazir. But they are also tracking a massive product launch specifically timed to this chaos.
GPT 5.6.
Right. GPT 5.6 is slated for a June 22nd to 28th launch window. And the key detail, it is expected to be priced at roughly 1/3 of Fable 5's pricing.
That is ruthless. They are dropping a new model at a fraction of the cost at the exact moment Anthropic's users are demanding refunds to just completely eat up that displaced user base.
Yep. Meanwhile, they are retiring GPT 4.5 on June 27th to basically force their own legacy users to migrate forward.
And you see this consolidation everywhere. Look at XAI, which is pending a $60 billion acquisition of Cursor.
Right, one of the biggest players in the AI coding interface space.
Yeah. That kind of capital moving indicates that the major players realize they can't just build the AI brain anymore. To survive the crushing compute costs of agentic AI, they have to own the entire pipeline, from the foundation model all the way down to the text editor the developer actually types in.
Across the Atlantic, Mistral in Europe is making major moves too.
Yeah, they just hired Brian Hall as their new chief marketing officer, bringing in a resume that spans Microsoft, Amazon, and Google.
Which is heavy hitting.
Very. Mistral is building out new code and app sections for their Vibe web platform, and they have a next-generation model with open weights set for early access in July.
Now, open weights is an important distinction from pure open source.
How so?
It means Mistral is releasing the fully trained neural network, the actual parameters and connections that make the AI smart so developers can download and run the brain itself.
Okay.
However, they aren't necessarily releasing the underlying training data or the exact recipes used to create that brain.
Ah, I see.
It is a middle ground that allows developers to build on top of Mistral's work while protecting their core intellectual property.
But you know, the most telling detail about Mistral in this digest isn't even their software. The Mistral CEO announced they are going to explore designing their own custom silicon chips to build out their infrastructure.
Which brings this entire deep dive full circle, really. Mistral, a software company, realizing they need to design physical hardware is the ultimate proof of the compute crisis.
Yeah.
The entire industry is furiously maneuvering around these twin existential threats. The astronomical margin-crushing costs of the electricity and chips required to run advanced AI, and the sudden, completely unpredictable regulatory crackdowns.
Nobody wants to be caught relying on hardware they don't own or models they aren't legally allowed to control.
Exactly.
Whether you are Microsoft trying to balance a multi-billion-dollar budget, OpenAI dropping new models to steal users, or just, an enterprise developer sitting at a desk trying to choose which API to integrate into your company's backend, the ground is completely shifting beneath your feet.
It really is.
For you listening, the era of flat-rate, infinitely cheap AI is officially dead. The invisible lines of server costs and international geopolitics are directly dictating the tools you are allowed to use. And suddenly, the nationality of the AI model summarizing your meeting notes matters a whole lot more than you might have thought.
We have spent the last few years collectively worrying about AI models becoming too smart. We debated artificial general intelligence and worried about algorithms taking over human decision-making.
Right, the sci-fi fears.
But looking at the brutal reality on the ground this week, what if the real bottleneck to the future of technology isn't the intelligence of the software at all?
What do you mean?
What if the true limiting factors are simply the sheer astronomical cost of the electricity required to run these agents and the geopolitical core borders we're drawing around the data centers? The next time you ask an AI to write a script, or you feed it your private enterprise data to analyze, ask yourself this: whose jurisdiction does your prompt now live in?
Man, that is a brilliant and slightly terrifying thought to leave on. Thank you for joining us for this custom deep dive. We extracted these specific insights from your reading list to ensure you have the full picture of the invisible forces driving the technology you use every single day. Because as we've seen this week, having the greatest player in the world doesn't mean anything if the government decides to padlock the stadium. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.